Our top story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will meet members of parliament from Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand over breakfast today. UP is a politically crucial state where elections are scheduled to be held next year. At least 40 MPs are expected to be present at this breakfast meeting with the Prime Minister. This comes days after the Prime Minister inaugurated the Kashi Vishwanath Dham in Varanasi, his parliamentary constituency, and chaired a meeting of the chief ministers of BJP-ruled states. The party has thrown all its might for the upcoming assembly elections, aiming to return to power in the state. BJP President JP Nadda is also expected to be present during this breakfast meeting. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah has been touring Uttar Pradesh extensively. Today, he will address a rally organized by the BJP and its ally, the Nishad Party, at 1 o'clock on the Ramabai Ambedkar ground in Lucknow. The program named Sarkar Banao Adhikar Pao, Form the Government, Claim Your Rights, is expected to bolster the ruling BJP's efforts to secure a scheduled caste status for the Nishads, who have proved themselves to be a useful electoral asset for the Saffron Party, as was seen during the previous elections. Being organized by the BJP and Nishad Party, the rally is at 1. The schedule of the UP Assembly elections is expected to be announced in January. In other news now, NDTV has exclusively accessed the cash for bail tapes, a scam being run from Tihar jail. Jailed ex-Ranbaxy billionaire Shivinder Singh's wife Aditi Singh is heard on this phone call discussing cash payments with conman Sukesh Chandrasekhar. In explosive phone transcripts, they are part of the Enforcement Directorate's charge sheet and have been exclusively accessed by NDTV. Shivinder Singh, a healthcare tycoon, has been in jail along with his brother Malvinder since October 2019 over charges of money laundering. Shivinder Singh's wife, over a period of 12 months, appears to have paid more than 200 crore rupees to the conman Sukesh, who called the family from Tihar jail using software that allowed him to impersonate high-ranking government officials. NDTV's Arvind Gunasekar reports.
The ED's charge sheet against conman Sukesh Chandrasekhar contains recordings of at least 80 conversations between conman Sukesh Chandrasekhar and Aditi Singh, wife of Ranbaxy founder Shivinder Singh, Aditi's sister Arundhati Khanna, and Shivinder Singh himself. Some of these recordings were made by the family and given to the Enforcement Directorate after Enforcement Directorate alerted them about being duped in the name of government officers. The Singhs then went so far as to file a police case alleging extortion of 200 crore by Sukesh Chandrasekhar. Curiously, no case has been filed against them for attempting to pay off officials. Instead, Aditi Singh has alleged that she was being threatened and harassed. In this recording dated July, made by Arundhati Singh, whose sister Aditi is married to Shivinder Singh, Sukesh Chandrasekhar calls her pretending to be someone called Abhinav, a junior of India's Law Secretary Anup Kumar, pressurizing her to organize more money quickly ahead of a Supreme Court hearing on bail.
Hi pal, good morning.
Sister, I asked you for something, you cannot say no.
Have I ever said no to you, brother? We've always done whatever you've asked for.
Okay.
That also in record time.
Understand. Yes, my dear sister, listen to me.
Yes, tell me,
Before
my dear
5,
brother.
I need at least minimum of something above 50, 75, something like that. Not exact 50, it should be above 50. Definitely 70, 75, something like that. Or if you're giving one, nothing like it.
In another recording dated July, Sukesh Chandrasekhar as Abhinav calls Aditi Singh, wife of Shivinder Singh, where the two argue over money, where Aditi refers to having donated to party funds but without getting any results.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you really care? You really think people do care about who is promise breaker or not? Because let me tell you something. I am the one, we are the one who are following up with you and coming to you again and again. Not just because you are going to organize some 5 crore, 10 crore or 20 crore and give. Let me tell you something. Okay.
But Abhinav, it's been a 1 year of building a relationship.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If we want to do that, we can just snap out of things. Please understand.
And why would
We
you
are
do
not that
that?
kind of people. No, we can. Because the way of your behaviors, we can.
But what is my behavior?
Hey, yaar. I'm just telling you, there's no point of arguing right now. So the only thing I'm saying to you is that we are people with ethics. We are people who care about your well-being. So that is the reason I'm telling you again and again, you will be able to pay because we know the truth.
In this third excerpt, Sukesh calls Aditi Singh pretending to be Union Home Secretary Ajay Kumar Bhalla, claiming that the Home Minister is following the case, except of course he is not, since this is not the real Home Secretary.
Hello, Aditi ji.
Ji speaking.
Yes, good afternoon. Ajay Kumar Bhalla this side, Home Secretary of India. Is this a good time? I can talk to you.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, sir, of course. It's a privilege to talk to you, sir. Ji, sir, I understand. Sir, may I make a small request? I'm sorry, I've been requesting for a meeting, and I would really like to come and meet if that is at all possible at any point of time. I would be most grateful for that.
I would like to mention to you that I'm sure you have been told even in before that there is certain right time for things to be done. So Mr. Anup will definitely tell you. I will also take this request to the Honorable Home Minister, and I will tell Amit Shah ji your request, but it will be honored as time to come.
Yes, I would be grateful. I would be grateful
on that regard.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I understand.
but you need to understand
Yes,
you are being handled and taken care by the topmost office of this country. That is why we all are calling you and we all are being associated with you. But we would want you to go by our instructions, as we are not okay in accepting advices and suggestions from your end.
Ji, sir. Ji, I'm sorry if I don't want to be out of line. Ji, sir. Ji, sir.
We have reached out to Delhi Police and Aditi Singh for a response, and we are yet to get their response.
All right, in other news now, a senior Congress leader from Karnataka was heard making an outrageous and sexist comment in the State Assembly on Thursday, putting rape on par with an unwilling acquiescence to discuss on farmers' issues. K.R. Ramesh Kumar, the former Speaker of the Karnataka Assembly, said that there is a saying that when rape is inevitable, lie down and enjoy. That is exactly the position which you are in, drawing guffaws from members, including his successor, Vishweshwar Hegde Kageri. The Congress members' comments came when MLAs were demanding time from the Speaker to discuss farmers' issues in the Assembly.
There is a saying, when rape is inevitable, lie down and enjoy it. That's exactly the position into which you are.
Well, to talk more about the COVID situation, Omicron in the UK and in India, we're now joined by Dr. Deepti Gurdasani, Senior Lecturer, Queen Mary University of London and epidemiologist. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us. And so what is your view of the new variant Omicron, given all that we know now, UK reporting its highest ever COVID numbers?
I think it's a serious crisis, and it's a crisis that's probably going to hit many, many countries very soon. So I think those countries should be watching South Africa, UK, Denmark, and Norway to see what's coming their way. What we're seeing is a very fit variant, so a variant that's doubling, at least in the UK, in less than every 2 days. And that means very, very rapid spread, which means healthcare services will get overwhelmed very, very quickly. So I think other countries have to look at this and preempt where we are now, rather than wait for it to take hold and rise as it is here before taking action.
Right. So if we talk about the Indian situation right now, our cases overall are quite low, but in Delhi we've just seen a spike coming after a month. So what do you think about India right now?
So I think vaccines alone are going to be not enough to prevent massive impact from a variant like Omicron, particularly because also 2 doses of vaccine are not providing sufficient protection against Omicron infection, at least, especially with I think the vaccines that are being used in India, like Covishield. And, it's very important at this point in time to start boosting the population as well. But even boosters alone will not be enough. What we need are multi-layered measures. So one, slow down the import of the variant. So comprehensive quarantines from, all international countries, given this is now widespread, is vitally important. Surveillance of the variant, identifying where it's spreading and stopping spread is very important. And good public messaging around high quality masks, not just cloth masks or even surgical masks, but FFP2 masks, with provision by government, good ventilation, social distancing, and mitigating spread in schools, all of those things together, along with vaccination and boosting, which I don't think has started in India at all, are all needed to prevent spread.
Right. You just spoke about, the efficacy of vaccines. We do know that Pfizer has come out and spoken about how there is a lower effectiveness against the Omicron variant. Now, what do we know about AstraZeneca, which is a Covishield here?
So AstraZeneca, what we know is that 2 doses alone have almost no effectiveness in preventing infection. We are hoping that it will have some effectiveness in reducing severe disease. We know that 2 doses of Pfizer probably do, because South Africa is reporting on that. So it's likely that AstraZeneca will have some efficacy in reducing severe disease, but it will be reduced from what it was before with Delta. And there's no doubt about that. And that will have impact at population level when large numbers of people get infected. So it's very, very important to move ahead with a 3rd dose of rollout, be it AstraZeneca or preferably Pfizer, although I know that that is challenging given the cold chains required to administer that at population level, and of course the costs associated with that as well.
Right. And Dr. Deepti, do we know about the impact of this variant on children? There were some reports of, high number of children being hospitalized in South Africa.
So we don't know very much. What we do know is that the admissions among children were higher in this wave in South Africa than they've seen. The admission rate was higher than in previous waves, and the severity of infection among the children admitted was higher. So more required ICU admission, more required oxygen, and all of those are worrying indicators. The impact seems to have been greatest among children under 5. And that's something that we're keeping a close eye on in the UK and in other countries where it's spreading. But I think it's too early to say what the impact will be. But certainly this is not a variant we want spreading rapidly through any country, because like I said, irrespective of the impact it has on children and adults, the impact on health services will be very severe in any country that it spreads.
And what about, all this talk of the severity of this new variant? We're told that so far it doesn't seem to cause very severe disease. Is it dangerous to count on that?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, the impact of a variant is determined much more by the rate of spread than by how likely it is to be severe in one person, So, for example, if you have a variant that's, say, half as severe, like the Delta variant, but spreads with a doubling rate of 2 days, even if it's half as severe, in 2 days you have double the number of cases, which means the number of hospitalizations is already the same as the variant that's twice as severe. So ultimately, because of the rapid spread and the number of people who will be exposed to it, the impact at population level is much, much greater, even if it were milder. And I'm not seeing any evidence that it is milder. I think the South Africa scenario is a bit different than many other countries, because there's a big difference between the level of population immunity they had between their 3rd wave and 4th wave, which is their current wave, because a lot of people were exposed to Delta in the 3rd wave. In the UK, for example, we don't have that massive difference in immunity between the 2 waves, because vaccination obviously was at high levels even during our Delta wave. So I don't think you can take what's happening in South Africa and extrapolate to every country and know exactly what's going to happen. But having said that, it's very clear that hospitalizations have risen very rapidly in South Africa, and deaths, while they're currently low, are still rising with the predicted lags of about 2 or 3 weeks. So, it takes time to see the severity of a variant, and just because you don't see it immediately doesn't mean it's not going to have impact. And we heard from the WHO as well. I mean, this is a serious crisis that many countries will be experiencing very soon. And I think those countries should look at countries that are affected now and think, this is not a way we want, 1, entering a country if we can prevent it, and 2, spreading rapidly across our population.
In fact, talking about, you spoke about the Delta wave, etc. One view in India is that because we had such a severe 2nd wave in India with the Delta variant, and now we have vaccinations, that we may not see a huge surge here.
I think that is what I call hopium. It's not true. Because if you look at South Africa, the level of exposure, if you look at the sort of level of antibodies in the population, it was around 80%. If you look at Delhi, sort of post-Delta wave, it was around 85%. And Delhi is probably one of the most affected areas. So because this variant is able to escape previous immunity much, much better, it can now infect people who were infected with Delta, which is the real danger of this variant. And it's possibly very transmissible as well. So both those 2 things together means that even a highly exposed population with vaccination, particularly with AstraZeneca, can have very, very high impact, and that should not be a reason for complacency.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Deepti Gurdasani, for joining us on the program. Well, with that, time for us to slip into a short break. Coming up on the other side, Team India arrives in South Africa. We'll get you the details. Welcome back. Well, let's just take you through all the latest Omicron developments. And there are 83 cases of the Omicron variant detected in India so far. Delhi has recorded 85 new COVID cases. That's the highest tally in nearly 5 months. The Indian cricket team is on tour in South Africa as cases spike there. The Health Ministry will have its briefing at 4 o'clock today. Internationally, the UK has reported 88,376 daily COVID cases for the second day, its highest tally ever. A record daily COVID cases are being reported for the second day there in the UK, and with 11,708 cases, the UK tops the world Omicron list, and with 9,009 cases, Denmark is second and Norway is third there. South Africa has 1,134 cases of Omicron. US President Biden has warned that the Omicron variant will spread more rapidly. A winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated is what President Biden has warned. And the G7 has called Omicron the biggest current threat to the world health. Now, IMF chief economist Geeta Gopinath, in an exclusive interview to NDTV, underlined 3 things that she would tell the centre on how to get back on track in the face of another potential COVID threat. One among them, make sure you're doing your vaccinations on a war footing.
You had 3 things to say. You met the Prime Minister already, but you had 3 things to tell the Indian government right now on how to get on track now with another COVID potential crisis booming. Luckily, our cases are down right now, but who knows what would they be?
Well, I think first, which again is true for all countries, is to make sure that you are doing your vaccinations on a war footing. You know, India is at about, in terms of the share of the total population, it's about 37% of the population that's fully vaccinated. Of course, that number in terms of first dose is much higher, closer to 60%. But what we see around the world is that when vaccine cases come down, pressure comes off, people, don't think about getting vaccinated. So getting over vaccine hesitancy and just on a war footing, pushing through much higher rates of vaccination, I think is essential. It's not going to solve you're still going to get infections. You're seeing that in the UK even with higher levels of vaccination rates. But everything points to the fact that even with Omicron, if you are vaccinated, you get some protection against severe disease and death. And that's what we should be targeting. So I think that's one big area.
So while experts say that India needs to move aggressively with its vaccine drive, even as the target of vaccinating 60% of the adult population by December end is still a distance away, and while there's a clamour for booster shots in some quarters, now a shocking report of vaccines being wasted in private hospitals.
With millions still unvaccinated against COVID, every bit of vaccine is precious. Yet shockingly, thousands of doses either have no takers or are expiring this month onwards. The government told the parliament that 2,410 COVID-19 vaccine doses in government stores are expiring in December 2021, and 1,910 doses of these are from Maharashtra. Private hospitals admit they are looking at huge wastage unless there are takers for these vaccine stocks. And private hospitals in Maharashtra say there are no takers.
Large number of stocks lying with hospitals like ours, and there are not too many takers for the vaccines now. For example, with our current level of stocks and the current level of vaccination which we are doing on a daily basis, our stocks will last for more than 6 months, and some of it will be beyond the expiry date. So there is a danger of expensive vaccines being expired when there is a need for the country to have more vaccines.
Since June this year, the government has allocated 25% of vaccine doses for private hospitals, while 75% is acquired by the centre and distributed among states. According to the Association of Healthcare Providers India, an industry body, around 50 lakh doses or 5 million doses are lying with private hospitals. The Minister of State for Health told Parliament COVID-19 vaccine stocks, which have not been utilised in private hospitals and are nearing expiry, are usually taken up for redistribution by respective state governments for its timely utilization. Not wanting doses to go waste, some hospitals are trying to send doses to area where vaccine penetration is low. The BMC is running camps like these in Dharavi, Asia's biggest slum, with private hospitals to ensure maximum coverage and minimum wastage. Many private hospitals have excess stock of vaccines, which is why they are organizing camps in areas like this one in Dharavi, to ensure that the vaccine stocks that are available with them don't go waste and a wider coverage of vaccination is ensured in a city like Mumbai. With camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
In other news now, in a village in Madhya Pradesh, the post of the Sarpanch, or village head, was given to the highest bidder. That's right. Villagers were unanimous that an auction instead of an election would do away with the tension among the aspirants. But the local administration says they won't accept it and an election will be held.
This is an auction, not the kind you see to sell fancy products or to buy IPL players, but to select who the next Sarpanch is going to be. Yes, you heard it right. Villagers in Madhya Pradesh practicing democracy by auction. This is inside a temple in Ashoknagar district. The open auction starts with rupees 21 lakh, reaches 43 lakh rupees. Finally, the big win. Saubhag Singh Yadav unanimously chosen the Sarpanch for 44 lakh rupees, defeating 4 other contenders for the post.
मंदिर पे चुनाव रखा गया है कि जो भी है राशि मंदिर मिलेगी तो विकास होगा, सनातन धर्म का आगे ही बढ़ेगा जो भी है, क्योंकि पाप में पैसा नहीं जा रहा, मंदिर ही जा रहा है पैसा, और वैसे पाप में जाएगा, दारू में मांस में जाएगा, अत्याचार होगा दुनिया के, तो अत्याचार से बचाने के लिए ग्राम भटोली के लिए ये प्रस्ताव रखा गया है.
The audition-based model works with the temple at the helm. Probable candidates enter into an open bid. Candidates bid for their candidature. The one with the highest bid will get a chance to contest the Sarpanch election unopposed. The audition money stays with the local village to be used for the development work in the area. Local Election Commission officials are shocked at this latest upgrade to democracy and now have sought a report from district officials.
जिला निर्वाचन अधिकारी से प्रतिवेदन चाहा है वो देखें कि वहाँ कोई आदर्श आचार संहिता का उल्लंघन तो नहीं हुआ है. जो रिपोर्ट आएगी तदनुसार फिर आगे कार्रवाई की.
The voting for Madhya Pradesh Panchayat elections will be held in 3 phases between January to Feb, but the Congress has filed a petition alleging Shivraj Singh Chauhan government has violated the rotation reservation norms. In Bhopal, with camera person Rizwan Khan and Swadesh Anurag for NDTV.
Now, despite protests both in Parliament and in UP calling for the resignation of Union Minister Ajay Misra Teni, BJP sources said there's no question of sacking the minister. The minister was at his office, in fact, in the Home Ministry on Thursday, and even live-streamed a meeting where, ironically, he spoke about the need for solid evidence-based prosecution of criminal cases.
Protests from Delhi to Lucknow amid growing demands for the resignation of India's Deputy Home Minister Ajay Misra Teni. 24 hours after he was filmed in UP's Lakhimpur, lunging at journalists and abusing them. When asked about his murder-accused son in jail for the killing of farmers in October. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi called for the minister's role in the Lakhimpur killings to be probed.
ये जो मंत्री है, इसको आप प्रश्न पे बोले आप, पहले प्रश्न नंबर बोले सरकार से निकाल देना चाहिए. ये
Several opposition MPs voiced similar demands.
लेकिन जो SIT ने रिपोर्ट दी है कोर्ट में, उसके आधार पर अजय मिश्रा टेनी जी को इस्तीफा दे ही देना चाहिए.
As protests were held inside and outside Parliament, Mr. Misra attended various meetings in North Block, which is not even a kilometre away. And if sources are to be believed, he would be touring North East this weekend on an official tour.
The unapologetic minister even live-streamed this meeting, where he spoke, ironically, about the need for foolproof prosecution.
तो ऐसे फोटोग्राफ, वीडियोग्राफ, ऐसे हमारे फॉरेंसिक एविडेंस, इन सब चीजों की ज्यादा से ज्यादा कलेक्शन हो तो निश्चित रूप से जो हमारी अदालत की जो सफलता है उस पर उसका प्रभाव पड़ेगा.
BJP sources have told NDTV that sacking Minister Ajay Misra at this point of time will serve no purpose. In fact, it will give more ammunition to the opposition parties.
हम भी चाहते हैं उनसे अच्छा सजेशन चाहते हैं, कंस्ट्रक्टिव सजेशन चाहते हैं.
But many, including farmer leader Rakesh Tikait, who helped broker peace after the Lakhimpur farmer killings, said they were not convinced with the government's argument.
भाई उनकी हिम्मत नहीं है ना कि जो पत्रकार क्वेश्चन करे उसका जवाब दे सके. हमने कहा और पूरा देश कह रहा है कि 120 का मुलजिम है, उसका इस्तीफा लो.
Farmers also highlight this video of Ajay Mishra Teni days ahead of the Lakhimpur incident, where he can be seen and heard openly threatening farmers. They now say if the investigation is into a conspiracy, the minister must be questioned too. With an aggressive opposition and a defiant BJP, the stalemate over Ajay Mishra, the minister, seems all set to continue. With Akhilesh Sharma, Vineet Verma and Neeta Sharma, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
Meanwhile, in the villages of Punjab, farmers are returning to emotional scenes. They're coming back after over a year of protests at the Delhi's borders and ensuring that the government repeals farm laws and agrees to their demands over MSP. Mohammad Ghazali reports.
Victory marches and slogan shouting, villages in Punjab are beaming with joy. Their ambassadors, emissaries, the torchbearers of the farmer agitation have now come back. Rajendra Singh's village is in Mohali, an urbanized area with fewer farmers in rural pockets, but the 15-month agitation has united one and all.
जो आंदोलन था ना ये कोई एक दो दिन का नहीं था और बहुत बड़ा आंदोलन था जिसका हमारे किसानों पे तो असर पड़ा ही है, लेकिन हमारे जो और भी भाई थे, मजदूर थे हमारे साथ, दुकानदार थे और थे, सभी में ये तो एक जैसे बीमारी फैल जाती है ऐसे फैल गई थी और घर घर में ऐसा हो रहा था कि दिल्ली चलना है, दिल्ली चलना है, दिल्ली चलना है.
Across Punjab, villages are also celebrating the participation of women. Farmer Charanjit Kaur says she participated for the first time in an agitation, spending a year away from her family. She says she has returned victorious.
ਜੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੱਥਾਂ 'ਚ ਜ਼ਮੀਨਾਂ ਖੁੱਸ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਜੀ, ਸਾਡਾ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਪਿੱਛੇ, ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਮੀਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਆ ਜੀ, ਜ਼ਮੀਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ, ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਜੁੜੀ ਸੀ ਜੀ.
Visuals like these have flooded social media, daughters breaking into tears, hugging and kissing their elderly who battled rain, cold and heat at Delhi's borders.
They are back from the agitation, but they say that their struggle is not yet over. And as Punjab goes to polls, many of them feel that the way farm union leaders steered this fight against the farm laws, they should now take the political plunge to ensure that farming gets revived in Punjab and also in the neighboring states. In Mohali, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
Hi, Marisa. Good to see you. Marisa, my first question is, how does, you've made this character your own, with your performance. How does one get to do that? With a lot of inputs from the director, I'm sure, but do you get to add a lot of your acting skills as well?
Yes, John and I worked really well together. I just adored working with him, and he trusted me a lot. And he likes to keep things loose, like kind of like an independent set, and not such a giant movie that it actually is. But so he really, he allowed a lot of improv, and we talked a lot about the values that May had to carry,
right,
even though it was in a different kind of incarnation as the past comics.
Right. And what's the biggest advantage, you would say, was the biggest advantage of being a part of a huge franchise like Spider-Man?
Knowing I had a job that was going to be there. Yeah, it's just seeing Tom and Zendaya and Jacob really come into their own. That was such a great pleasure. And being with John, really working with John consistently was something that was also a wonderful thing to be part of. To just get deeper and deeper, to be so familiar with a director and to be able to do 3 movies with him.
Right. Signing up for something like this also must be a long-term commitment. Did it cross your mind that, you would like to continue this, and is being typecast something that crosses your mind as well?
Yes, both of those things are big worries.
Right, but you've done it so well, and you side by side you continue to do other wonderful films as well. We've enjoyed all your performances. You will keep a balance between the two always?
I try to. Thank you. I do try, and I'm going to get to do a movie with Rebecca Miller right after this, so that's going to be just truly wonderful. And yeah, there's a few things that are smaller in scale, but big in character coming up. So it's nice to have the balance between that and this.
Right. There's always so much curiosity about, the secrets of Spider-Man, what's in it, who's in it. Do your family, friends ask you what's in it? Do you end up telling someone anything?
People want to know. People want to know for sure, but I'm contracted to secrecy.
Great. You guys have managed that so well. And, in this also, your performance was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you for your time.
Welcome back. Well, let's get to the latest on Omicron, the new variant of coronavirus that's spreading rapidly across the world. Now, in India, so far, 83 cases of Omicron have been detected. These are the known cases. Delhi has recorded 85 new COVID cases. That's the highest tally in nearly 5 months. Team India, the cricket team, is on tour as cases are spiking in South Africa, and we are expecting the Health Ministry briefing today at 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, the UK has reported 88,376 daily COVID cases. That's the highest they've recorded ever during this pandemic, and it's the second straight day that they've recorded a record daily high. And with 11,708 cases, the UK tops the world Omicron list, followed by Denmark, Norway, then South Africa, and then Canada reporting 488 cases of the Omicron variant. Now, while all experts say that India needs to move aggressively with its vaccine drive, even as the target of vaccinating 60% of the adult population by December end is still a distance away, and while there's a clamor for booster shots as well, now a shocking report of how vaccines are being wasted in private hospitals.
With millions still unvaccinated against COVID, every bit of vaccine is precious. Yet shockingly, thousands of doses either have no takers or are expiring this month onwards. The government told the parliament that 2,410 COVID-19 vaccine doses in government stores are expiring in December 2021, and 1910 doses of these are from Maharashtra. Private hospitals admit they are looking at huge wastage unless there are takers for these vaccine stocks. And private hospitals in Maharashtra say there are no takers.
Large number of stocks lying with hospitals like ours, and there are not too many takers for the vaccines now. For example, with our current level of stocks and the current level of vaccination which we are doing on a daily basis, our stocks will last for more than 6 months, and some of it will be beyond the expiry date. So there is a danger of expensive vaccines being expired when there is a need for the country to have more vaccines.
Since June this year, the government has allocated 25% of vaccine doses for private hospitals, while 75% is acquired by the centre and distributed among states. According to the Association of Healthcare Providers India, an industry body, around 50 lakh doses or 5 million doses are lying with private hospitals. The Minister of State for Health told Parliament COVID-19 vaccine stocks, which have not been utilised in private hospitals and are nearing expiry, are usually taken up for redistribution by respective state governments for its timely utilisation. Not wanting doses to go waste, some hospitals are trying to send doses to area where vaccine penetration is low. The BMC is running camps like these in Dharavi, Asia's biggest slum, with private hospitals to ensure maximum coverage and minimum wastage. Many private hospitals have excess stock of vaccines, which is why they are organizing camps in areas like this one in Dharavi, to ensure that the vaccine stocks that are available with them don't go waste and a wider coverage of vaccination is ensured in a city like Mumbai. With camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Well, to talk more about the situation in the country, the Omicron threat and our vaccination drive, we're now joined by Dr. Sunila Garg, member Lancet Commission, COVID India Task Force, Dr. Shashank Joshi, member COVID Task Force Maharashtra, and Dr. Suresh Kumar, MD LNJP Hospital, member Delhi COVID Task Force. Thank you so much, doctors, for joining us on the program this morning. And Dr. Sunila Garg, first to you, across the world, there's this demand for booster shots. You have the UK Prime Minister, the US President, all pushing people to get the booster doses in view of the Omicron threat. But here in India, there is no word yet on boosters.
Gargi, you're absolutely right. Basically, what we have to understand that every country's scenario is very different. What we have to understand in context of our own scenario, where we have got about 55% coverage of the second doses. So we need to, basically look at that part first. And the government is already looking at, from the perspective of vaccination for the children, because we do have a long mile to go with regard to that also. But as far as, basically we look in the overall vaccine perspective. So first of all, our important priority is to vaccinate everyone, every adult with the 2 doses of vaccine, and we do have enough, data with regard to our natural infections as well. And, as far as the question of wastage is concerned, we need to see that, in our own states, the hospitals have to make aggressive, efforts in order to distribute vaccinations to, the areas which are underserved areas, and the state governments have to make aggressive efforts to take over these vaccines. So it is very important to look at this. And also, when it comes to, subsequently, we need to look at our own healthcare workers or the priority groups like, elderly population and all, but that's a long journey. But initially, our priority has got to be to look at, everybody gets 2 doses of vaccines, follows.
Right, but I don't see that happening. I don't see that push here at NDTV. We report about it. We, give you the numbers in terms of vaccinations, daily vaccinations, what we need to do to achieve that target. But I don't see from the top this major push coming for vaccinations, which areas are lagging. You're saying state governments and central government, everybody needs to work together to give it that push and create more awareness around it.
Yeah, definitely. But then this is, also health is a state subject, and where the vaccines are lying with the states, and the states have to make very aggressive efforts to, kind of decentralize the usage of vaccine. That is one of the most important things. We have to make sure that there is no hesitancy at any point of time. We can't let the vaccines go waste, because we do have data, with regard to state-wise, that how many persons have been vaccinated, and the efforts are really have to happen at the grassroots levels or at the hospital levels also. So that's where wherever the vaccine stocks are lying, the aggressive efforts have to be made to redistribute the vaccine, because this is what has to be the need of the hour. We can't let the vaccine doses go waste, and the state governments have to make an effort immediately.
All right, Dr. Suresh Kumar, your view on that, and also the fact that Delhi has recorded 85 COVID cases. That's the daily cases. That's the highest that we've seen in the last 5 months.
Ma'am, we have seen that large number of these cases are from the airport, international arrival. We have seen more than 55 cases in last 1 week who are admitted in the Loknayak hospital, and they are referred to us from airport. from Europe, from African countries, mainly the South Africa and Tanzania, and few cases from the Dubai and Sweden. So we have more and more cases coming in Delhi from the Omicron affected countries, and much of these positivity in Delhi is because of these international travelers. And as the madam already discussed about the need of vaccination, we know that vaccination is going to save us, and we have seen most of these cases of Omicron who are admitted in the localized hospital are by and large symptoms free or asymptomatic or have only mild symptoms. And if we are fully vaccinated, if we have already received 2 doses, then the chances of hospitalization and even the ICU requirement would not be there if vaccination drives go on further, because more than half of the Indian population is already vaccinated. But more need to be done, and the speed at which the vaccination drive is going on is already robust vaccination, but we need to vaccinate all groups.
Right, and a majority of the adult population. Dr. Shashank Joshi, but the worry also is what we know about reinfections with this Omicron variant, and Pfizer has already said that, you know, the efficacy of their vaccine is lower in the face of this particular variant, and according to, you know, many experts, that for AstraZeneca or Covishield, which is the main vaccine here in India, that it is even lower, and it will not protect you from getting infected.
That is correct, but at the same time, we know 2 things very clearly. Number 1, vaccines protect lives and save lives. And secondly, they save you from severe disease. That data is clear cut. So we have 15% of India which is still to get even 1 dose. So I think it is important that we cover that 15% of India as early as possible, as quickly as possible, as Dr. Garg was mentioning. And as Dr. Kumar said, that even the second dose, 55% have got it, and another 45% have yet to receive it. So we need to ensure that our first and second doses are in place, so that the people who will come to hospital, even if they get infected or reinfected, will have mild disease or asymptomatic disease. One thing is clear, that the vaccines are like immune boosters. They take the sting out of the disease, and they are less likely than the person will die. If you see even the Omicron across the world, and including the 4 big spots, which is UK, the Norway, the Denmark and South Africa, the hospitalizations have been substantially lesser compared to the earlier waves, and the death rate has almost been non-extinct. That's partly because, despite of Omicron ducking the reinfections, people who had got natural infection or had got 2 doses of good vaccines, still, you know, the death rate has been almost minuscule, and this is a very reassuring sign, if you ask me.
Right,
of
and
course,
currently,
we can't be complacent.
If we talk about the Omicron variant, we've been testing all the passengers, all the travelers coming in from abroad, but we still have, I feel, not been testing enough, doing the genomic sequencing of tests within the country, and we know how rapidly this spreads, and WHO and, you know, examples from South Africa and UK are there to see the rate of the spread of this variant is extremely worrying, and inevitably with our population, you know, if we talk about absolute numbers, it's going to lead to more hospitalizations.
So that is absolutely true, but it is currently sporadic and travel related. But we are getting clusters. Like, for example, you saw in Mumbai, in an office, there was an exposure and all the 8 people were exposed, and that gets our focus on air ventilation. Remember, we still need to do our basics right. We still need to behave responsibly, mask completely and totally, if needed double mask, and we need to focus on air ventilation, because if you are in a closed indoor environment, particularly air conditioned, you are still likely to transmit if you are going to unmask. And we have wedding season around the corner, festive season around the corner. So we do not want spreader or super spreader.
As well. Yes.
So we don't want spreader or super spreader events. And I think the biggest vaccine against, COVID is still masking and appropriate behavior.
Right. Dr. Garg, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I think that is one thing which is very, what is important is the 360-degree approach. What Dr. Suresh also mentioned and Dr. Joshi also mentioned, the key approach to the whole thing is the COVID appropriate behavior. The science is in place, the genomic sequencing is going on, the containment strategy is already there. Yesterday also in Delhi, we tested about 75,000 individuals. So you see, we need to kind of, look at this whole approach in a very comprehensive manner, because when we are dealing with the communities, we are dealing with very diverse communities. We have to realize And this is where, I say that, we have to come together as one country, and different states have to together, share their experiences, and we fight the battle against the whole thing. But there is no need to panic. That is one thing I would like to say from this platform, that no need to panic. We need to behave responsibly. We need to take two doses of vaccine, and first and foremost, wear masks. That is one thing which is very important, and there is no need to panic.
Right. No, the worry is people aren't panicking. They seem to be totally blasé and, immune to the whole, threat from this new variant. But we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, doctors, for sparing your time and joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, moving on to other news, and a shocker from Karnataka, where a senior Congress leader was heard making an outrageous and sexist comment in the State Assembly. This was on Thursday, putting rape on par with an unwilling agreement to a discussion on farmers' issues. Now, K.R. Ramesh Kumar, the former Speaker of the Karnataka Assembly, said that there is this saying that when rape is inevitable, lie down and enjoy it, and that is exactly the position which you are in, drawing guffaws from members of including his successor Vishweshwara Hegde Kageri. The Congress members' comment came when the MLAs were demanding time from the Speaker to discuss the farmers' issue in the Assembly, and then he said this to the Speaker, saying that your position is that, and so just go ahead and let us have this discussion. Let's listen to what he has to say.
There is a saying, when rape is inevitable, lie down and enjoy it. That's exactly the position into which you are.
Ramesh Kumar remark about the rape on the floor of the House is obnoxious and outrightly disgraceful. He is a serial offender. While he was a Speaker of the Assembly, he had made a similar comment. Now again he has repeated it. Congress party, which always claimed they are for women's safety and security and the respect, should immediately initiate action against this serial offender.
All right, let's go across to Maya for more on this story. And Maya, I believe that the Congress MLA has apologized, but I feel that, the entire assembly should apologize. Everybody who laughed should apologize, because it's absolutely shocking that, they treat such an insensitive, sexist comment like that so lightly.
Absolutely, Gargi. The remark itself was extremely offensive, an extremely offensive trivialization of a crime like rape. That in itself was bad enough. But equally terrible, the response of the people around, the laughter, the acceptance of this was just a light-hearted comment. The Speaker has not called up Ramesh Kumar or expunged the comment. The very fact that the remark was treated so lightly is an indictment, really, of everybody who was there in the Assembly who did not object to this. We've had former Speaker Ramesh Kumar also making a similar remark in the past as well, some years earlier, where when there were allegations against him of bribery, he said that he felt like a rape victim. But while the BJP is objecting to this remark, it's really something which kind of spreads across different parties as well. Not too long ago, after a terrible rape in Mysuru, the Home Minister, the BJP Home Minister Aditya Gyanendra, also said he felt as if he was being raped by the opposition over the issue. Another trivialization of the trauma women go through, or any rape victim actually goes through. And of course, some years ago, we did have ministers in the Assembly, BJP ministers in the Assembly, also allegedly watching pornography while the House was in session. This kind of trivialization of rape, not new at all, a terrible remark by the former Speaker Ramesh Kumar to Congress, but no criticism of this. No, he was not called up. He was not criticized at all by the Speaker of the House.
And Maya, after this uproar, he's put out one tweet, which we're taking on air right now, which says, I'd like to express my sincere apologies for my comments, indifferent and negligent comment made by me. And this was not my intention, but it was an off-the-cuff remark. I'll choose my words carefully henceforth. But again, like you were saying, the reaction to his comments was also very shocking. You have the Speaker, laughing away like it's the most normal thing to sort of say, and you can hear, sniggers in the Assembly. So the MLA just apologizing like this, but even the whole Assembly must take it up, or the Speaker, make some comment about it, about the fact that they treated it so trivially.
This was in the Karnataka Legislative Assembly being held in Belagavi. This kind of statement is bad enough in a private context. It is not acceptable in a private context either. But in such a public context, when the MLAs, the elected representatives of the state of Karnataka, are meeting and discussing issues, a kind of remark like this, which reveals the mindset of people, the fact that a crime like rape is not taken seriously, is very, very disturbing indeed. And more disturbing, additionally disturbing to the comment itself, the reaction of the people around it, laughing it off as if it was a quite acceptable joke. It is indeed very disturbing and is likely to draw very strong criticisms from elsewhere as well over the remark of the former Speaker, Ramesh Kumar, and the response of the Karnataka Assembly.
All right, Maya, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. So that shocker in the Karnataka Assembly, an apology as well, but really more needs to be said about the manner in which this remark was treated. Well, time for us to slip into a short break now. More news coming up on the other side. Stay with us.
At a time when artificial intelligence is set to transform all our lives, we speak to Kunal Chaudhary, CEO of Apollo Singapore Investments, on investments in HR technology. Thank you for your time. Could you take us through your focus areas in terms of investments at the moment?
I think the entire pandemic has shown how integral HR is to companies, to the company's bottom line. The pandemic has completely turned things around in terms of how companies and CEOs need to view their workforce. And that is why HR tech in particular is an area of focus for Apollo. In terms of our investments in India, we've been doing angel investing in India for a long time, at least a decade now, and have invested in a number of industries and sectors over the last several years. HR tech for Apollo is something we started doing to start off in Singapore. I've invested out of about 10 or 12 of our investments, at least 50% are in the HR tech space. And I'm a member of an HR tech accelerator program out of Singapore, which has identified potential HR tech companies in India as well. But more importantly, and I think this is something you'll find interesting, 2 of my HR tech startups in Singapore actually have a presence in India and are looking at growing their presence in India.
All right. Can you also take us through the tech companies' growing presence in India currently?
I think the first one I'd like to talk about is a company called Impress.ai. And this is a company that basically conducts interviews using AI chatbots. So, in plain language, that basically means that a candidate will pick up their smartphone and apply for a job via chat or messaging platform. And they're not speaking to a real person, but in fact, actually speaking to an AI. And most of the time, they don't even know that they are speaking to an AI. And the reason I invested in this company is twofold. Number one, I feel that during the pandemic, health and safety became a big issue for a lot of companies. So these days, companies don't want 50 or 100 potential candidates landing up at their offices. So this is one way of interviewing at scale in a safe manner. The second thing that AI chatbots are able to do is that they're able to very effectively help weed out subconscious biases that potential employers may have during the interview process. And third, it allows you to interview a much larger pool of candidates. The second is a company called Rush Owl. Rush Owl, owl as in the bird. They are a very interesting company which sort of sit at the intersection of mobility and HR technology. In short, this is a company that uses AI technology to basically help identify smart routes on buses for people to go from point A to point B. And what it does, from what's important from an HR perspective, especially in a country like India, is, employees very often, work late at night. And sometimes if they can't find a taxi or they are uncomfortable taking an Ola cab or an equivalent at night, they can basically use Rush Owl service to connect to a bus which could potentially take them from their office to their home and or vice versa. So think of this sort of like an Ola for buses, but the advantage it has is that you're traveling with other people that you know.
Well, surely an exciting future there with AI taking over all our lives. Thank you for your time and thank you for this interaction.